Did you know that 1995, or 30 years ago, was a turning point for Korean pop culture? It's said that the current Korean wave, or hallyu, has its roots in that year. Let's find out why in today's Culture Issue segment. And for that, we're joined by culture critic Professor Chie Hye-won at Kyung Hee University. Welcome back, Professor Chie.
Welcome, Professor.
Hello, good afternoon.
So let's travel back in time to year 1995. So why was this year important in terms of K-pop culture, K-contents, and so forth, which is receiving so much love these days?
Right, the 1990s marked a turning point for the Korean pop culture industry in many ways, but in particular, 1995 was very important because it was the year that one of the leading K-pop agencies, SM Entertainment, began its business in earnest, which changed the landscape of the Korean pop music industry. And it was also the year that CJ Entertainment, now CJ E&M, launched their film business. So not only that, two of the Korean longest running musicals, The Last Empress and Love in the Rain, premiered in that year as well. Moreover, the famous TV series Sandglass, 모래시계, also broadcast on SBS in 1995. So yeah, we can say that 1995 truly the year that when the foundation for the full-scale expansion and growth of the Korean cultural industry was laid.
Right. We did specifically talk about the 30th anniversary of these K-musicals, but now it looks like there were really some other milestones made in that year, so very impressive.
Very impressive indeed, and it's actually quite interesting to hear that both SM and CJ E&M both started around 1995, you know, with SM with K-pop and CJ E&M with K-content, whether it be fate or whether it just be a very well coincidence.
Right.
But how have they revolutionized Korea's culture history?
SM Entertainment actually opened an era of K-pop by introducing Korea's first professional artist and entertainment management system. So after producer Lee Soo-man introduced Yoo Young-jin and Hyun Jin-young in the early 1990s, and SM Entertainment was established in 1995 and has grown into the leading entertainment agency representing the era of K-pop idols by successfully producing H.O.T., SES, Shinhwa, and BoA. And CJ, 제일제당, led the entry of the large corporations into the cultural industry by developing the Korean film industry in the mid to late 1990s, as it began its business through the CJ Entertainment and also the movie theater franchise CGV. So I remember it launched the CJ movie theater franchise in 1997 or 8. So it was around that year. So it later expanded its business to include the theatrical works, and in 2011 it merged into CJ E&M with its media department. So and CJ became the Korea's largest media and entertainment corporation.
Wow, and it doesn't end there. In 1995, also, Korea's cable TV started in that year. And also riding on that trend, Arirang TV was also launched a couple of years later in 1997.
Right.
So, Professor Chie, how did this change affect the media or content industry here in Korea?
Right, you're right. The cable television was launched in Korea in 1995 as well, so which was actually the real historical moment in the media industry. Since then, the audience's channel choices have increased dramatically, and there has been a major change as the audiences could watch the genres and programs with what they want 24/7. So through the specialized stations like CJ's Mnet or KMTV, or channels specializing in movies or TV dramas. So although it was still limited compared to the current OTTs, but however, the launch of cable TV has led the audience's segmentation according to their preferences. Also, the emergence of specialized channels of like music or dramas, movies, and sports, and etc., has greatly expanded the distribution structure of popular culture contents as well, and in particular has promoted the growth of the music video market. So, including the famous large-scale music videos of 조 성모 or Kim Bum-soo, like To Heaven or 보고 싶다, those kind of things. So, through the cable TVs, and the American or British TV series like Friends or Sex and the City became very, very popular as well.
Well, it's very interesting to look at this timeline because nowadays the consumption of contents, many people watch OTT platforms.
Right.
And it looks like 30 years ago it was when cable TV started, and before that it was the era of just regular public broadcasting stations. Right. But now let's move over to Hongdae, which is a very famous area here in Korea, also for many tourists who travel to Seoul. It's not only a famous art district in Seoul, but the indie music scene began also to take roots at Hongdae clubs around 1995 again. So how do you see these scenes having added to the diversity to Korean music?
So yeah, you're right. The 1990s was an important period, not only the idols or the hip hop, but also for the indie scene. It was the time when the young generation, known as Generation X, like me, and enjoyed the various culture, and the particular cultural trend was formed around Hongik University and Apgujeongdong. So in the mid-1990s, live clubs increased around Hongdae, and some of the bands and musicians were gained popularity from Hongdae, including Yoon Do-hyun, Crying Nut, 자우림, 삐삐 Band, and No Brain. So the music industry became really diverse and truly prosperous in 1990s, particularly in 1995, actually.
So, Professor Chie, were you also active around the Hongdae area?
Of course. Of course, I was there.
Enjoyed the scene there?
Yes.
Great.
And obviously, unlike today, I mean, online communities are very, very big. But back then, they was fairly quite new, but they were still thriving, of course. Online communities were starting to take off around then. What was the impact like, and were those clubs the foundation of the fandom, that the community culture that we see these days?
The driving force behind the development of popular culture in the 1990s was not only the launch of the cable TV or emergence of large entertainment companies. Another major reason actually was the formation of active fandom, the fan culture, as the consumers of a popular culture began to actively communicate through online communities like PC통신, 천리안, 하이텔, and 나우누리 before the internet era. So online communities led the beginning of the fan culture, and especially the music industry, so grew rapidly around the solid fandom. So as the internet era began in earnest in the 2000s, these fan activities spread out not only domestically but also overseas, so which actually growing the Korean wave. So in the late 90s to in the early 2000s.
And anything else notable from, like, let's say, a cultural aspect about, like, 1995 specifically?
Yeah, in the mid-1990s, actually the youth population, like 19 to 34 years old, was approximately 13.77 million, the highest ever in Korea, as the baby boomer became parents and their children, Generation X, was actually economically and culturally more comfortable than before. So there was a solid group of people, the group of audiences that enjoyed the culture and was a clear foundation for the development of Korean culture. So these consumers trend that actually stood out in the 1990s were also related to the increase in family restaurants like TGIF or Benny Guns or the multiplex movie theaters like a CGV or Megabox, and the coffee franchises as well, like a Starbucks. So it happened actually in late 1990s.
I see. And I think it was kind of unfortunate that a few years later, IMF, the situation broke out, the we got an economic downturn in the country, not only in Korea, of course, but then again, maybe it was also lucky that we could start off with these, K-culture big milestones just before that in 1995.
Exactly.
Now, Professor Chie, there's been a resurgence in the interest in the 1990s culture these days when it comes to K-dramas, and also K-pop is seeing some elements from the past these days. There's also remixes from these days, like fourth generation idol groups that are making remixes from songs from the 1990s. So why do you think we are seeing this trend?
So the cold retro trend has been prominent in various sectors, including K-popular culture since the 2010s, can be understood as a kind of nostalgia marketing for the 30 to 50s, the main consumer group. And the recall and reinterpretation of 90s cultural service serves as an opportunity for the younger generations, to give them the opportunity to experience the culture of the parents, their parents' generation in a new way, and for the middle ages group to remind of their youth and the good old days. So that these are the kind of trend for the popular culture and the music and the TV dramas as well. For instance, this series of Reply 1997, 1994, 1988 led the retro craze by conveying the emotions of 80s or the 90s to the various generations with the newly arranged Korean music from the 90s. So I can say that 1990, especially in 1995, the time of culture and emotional explosion was a clear turning point for the Korean society and the Korean pop culture as well. And it's also flexibly connected to the 2020s, currently culture and the younger generation as well.
Right. Maybe we could have a new series, 응답하라 1995 or Reply 1995,
right,
because so much happened in that year.
Of course.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Chie, for today's interesting topic, and looking forward to next time.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, Walter, as always. We're going to see you back here tomorrow.
See you very soon.